The academy floated above a blue gas giant, shining like a jewel in space. It was one of the most respected interstellar schools in the galaxy. Children from dozens of species studied there. Some had wings. Some had scales. Some had eyes that glowed in the dark. Humans were new, very new. Most aliens had only seen humans in reports and short meetings. The reports always said the same thing. Humans were small, slow, and soft. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no poison. Compared to others, humans looked weak. That belief followed one human boy every day. He walked through the long metal halls alone. He was shorter than most students. His skin was smooth. His hands were empty. He wore the same simple uniform as everyone else, but on him it looked plain. He kept his eyes down as he passed groups of students. The laughter started. "Careful," one alien said loudly. "You might step on him." Another flicked its tail and grinned. "Does it even have bones strong enough to stand?" A group with shark teeth laughed together. They spoke just loud enough for him to hear. They always did. The human said nothing. He never answered. He never ran. He just walked out in class. He sat near the back. His desk was smaller, adjusted for his size. That alone made others laugh. When he raised his hand, the room often went quiet, not from respect, but from surprise. Why would a human want to speak? Sometimes teachers answered him. Sometimes they ignored him. They were not cruel, but they did not see the problem. Humans were harmless, after all. A little teasing would not hurt them, or so they believed. The human learned quickly. He finished his work early. He listened more than he spoke. He watched at lunch. Things were worse. Alien students showed off their strength without trying. One cracked a metal tray by accident. Another lifted a bench with one arm. They told stories about hunting beasts on their home worlds. They looked at the human and laughed. "What do humans hunt?" One bully asked. "Tiny animals?" "Maybe plants," another replied. "If they can catch them." Laughter echoed across the room. The human ate quietly. His food was simple. His movements were calm. Inside, he felt the words, but he did not let them show. His people had taught him patience. Long patience. One day, a bright notice appeared on the wall screens. Upcoming event. Bring your pet to school DIY. Hall exploded with excitement. Students talked loudly about what they would bring. Some planned flying creatures. Others bragged about beasts trained for combat. A few even talked about pets that could melt steel or bend minds. The bullies noticed the human at once. One leaned close and laughed. "What will you bring, human? A bug?" Another tapped his own claws together. "Or maybe nothing." Humans don't have dangerous pets. They laughed harder than before. "Maybe he is the pet." Someone said the human did not answer. He stood up and walked away. His face showed nothing. But that night, alone in his small room, he looked at a single image on his device. It showed a vast shape, older than cities, calm as mountains. He stared at it for a long time. At school, the jokes grew sharper as the event came closer. Teachers reminded students about safety rules. Pets must be controlled. No attacks. No damage. No fear behavior. The bullies smirked and glanced at the human. Fear behavior, they thought. Humans lived in fear. On the morning before the event, the largest bully blocked the human's path. "So," the bully said, bending low, teeth showing, "what will you bring tomorrow?" The human finally looked up. His eyes were steady. Not angry. Not afraid. "You'll see," he said softly. The bully froze for a moment, then laughed it off. "Sure we will." In class that day, the teacher explained the event once more. Students barely listened. They were already dreaming of showing off. The human sat still. Near the end of the lesson, he raised his hand. The teacher paused, surprised. Yes, human. The room turned toward him. Smiles appeared. Some students leaned forward, waiting. The human stood up. His voice was calm, polite. "Are large pets allowed?" he asked. For a second, the room was silent. Then it burst into laughter. Some students slammed their desks. Others wiped tears from their eyes. The bullies laughed the loudest of all. "Large?" one shouted. "You?" The teacher forced a small smile. "As long as the pet follows safety rules," they said. Unsure, the human nodded once and sat down. He smiled. Just a little. No one noticed. But far away, beyond the academy walls, something very large was already awake. The day of the event arrived faster than anyone expected. From the moment the academy lights shifted to morning mode, excitement filled every hall. Students rushed past each other, speaking loudly in dozens of languages. Teachers stood at checkpoints, reading lists and checking rules. Security drones floated higher than usual. Bring your pet to school day was not a small thing at an interstellar academy. For many species, pets were symbols of pride. They showed strength, status, and control. Some families trained their pets for generations. Just for moments like this, the human boy arrived early. He walked through the main gates alone, just as he always did. No cage followed him. No leash. No shadow beside him. His hands were empty. A few students noticed and laughed quietly. "Guess he forgot," one said. "Or maybe humans aren't allowed to bring pets," another replied. Human did not slow down. In the open demonstration hall, students were already setting up. Large barriers divided the space. Energy shields shimmered softly, ready to activate if something went wrong. One by one, pets arrived. A floating creature made of light drifted above its owner. A scaled beast with 6 legs growled as it was chained to the floor. A winged animal screamed loudly, shaking dust from the ceiling. The bullies gathered near the center, proud and loud. Their pets were dangerous, trained, and clearly feared. Other students kept their distance. When the human entered the hall, heads turned. He walked to an empty space near the edge and stopped. That was all. No pet appeared. The laughter began almost at once. "Look!" one bully shouted. He came anyway. Another pointed. "Where's your mighty beast, human?" The human stood still. His face was calm. His heart was not racing. He had waited for this moment far longer than they knew. A teacher approached, checking a tablet. "Student," the teacher said carefully, "where is your pet?" "It is coming," the human replied. The teacher frowned. "This event has strict timing." The human nodded. "I know." The teacher hesitated, then moved on. Humans were new. Maybe this one misunderstood the rules. The bullies circled closer. "Coming from where?" one asked. "Your pocket?" Laughter rolled through the hall. The human did not answer. Minutes passed. More pets arrived. The noise grew louder. The ground vibrated under heavy steps and wings. Still, the human stood alone. Some students began to feel uneasy. Not because of him, but because of how calm he was. Finally, a deep sound echoed through the hall. It was not loud at first. More like a distant hum. Too deep to be ignored. The laughter slowed. The sound grew stronger. The floor trembled slightly. Loose objects rattled on tables. Security drones shifted position. Teachers looked at each other. "What is that?" someone whispered. The bullies frowned. One laughed nervously. "Probably a ship landing." The human lifted his head. The hall doors, massive, reinforced, rarely opened, fully began to separate. Slowly. With effort. A shadow stretched across the floor. It was enormous. The room fell silent. Students backed away without thinking. Pets growled, hissed, or pressed close to their owners. Some refused to move at all. The doors opened. Wider. Something moved outside. Heavy, controlled, patient. Teachers shouted orders. Shields flickered on. Emergency lights flashed. The human stepped forward. "Wait," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. The movement outside stopped. That frightened everyone more than noise ever could. The shadow shifted again, carefully this time, as if aware of its size. A massive shape lowered itself, just enough to fit through the opening. Gasps filled the hall. The bully stood frozen. The creature did not roar. It did not threaten. It simply entered, each step measured, each movement calm and precise. Its presence filled the space. The human walked to its side. He placed one hand against its armored surface. The creature lowered its head slightly. The room did not breathe. The human turned to the teachers. "This is my pet," he said. And for the first time, no one laughed. The creature stood fully inside the hall. Now it was larger than any pet ever brought to the academy. Its body was long and powerful, covered in dark armored plates that looked older than metal. Faint lines of soft light moved across its skin like slow breathing. Its eyes glowed with a steady, deep color, not wild, not angry, but aware. Very aware. The hall felt smaller with it there. No one spoke. Even the loudest pets were silent. Some pressed flat against the floor. Others pulled at their restraints, desperate to move away. A few simply shut down, senses overwhelmed. Security drones hovered closer, weapons warming, unsure what to do. A teacher finally found their voice. This was not approved," they said, though their words shook. The human stood beside the creature, his hand still resting on its side. Compared to it, he looked impossibly small. "It follows the rules," he replied calmly. "It will not harm anyone unless I tell it to." That did not make anyone feel better. One of the bullies took a step back and bumped into another student. "That thing isn't a pet," he muttered. "That's a weapon." The human turned his head slightly. "It is not a weapon," he said. "It is family." The creature shifted its weight. The floor creaked under the pressure. Energy shields flickered as sensors struggled to read its mass. Teachers spoke rapidly into their communicators. Academy officials appeared on the upper walkways, staring down in disbelief. "What species is that?" someone asked. The human answered without pride. "A guardian species from my home world." A soft, low sound came from the creature. It was not a growl. It was more like a warning, or a reminder. The bullies were no longer smiling. One of them, shaking but trying to look strong, stepped forward. "If it's so well trained," he said, "make it do something." Several teachers shouted at once. "No." The human raised his hand. The creature froze completely. Not even its eyes moved. The silence deepened. The human lowered his hand. The creature relaxed again. Just a little. That was enough. Fear spread through the room like cold air. This was not control through force. This was understanding. The head teacher finally descended to the floor. Their voice was firm, but their body language showed tension. "Human," they said. "Why bring something like this here?" The human looked around the hall, at the students who laughed at him, at the bullies who now avoided his eyes, at the teachers who never stopped the mocking. "Because you asked us to bring our pets," he said simply. No one had an answer. The creature lowered itself, resting its massive body on the floor. The motion was slow and careful, as if it knew how fragile the building was. That frightened everyone even more. Could have destroyed the hall without effort. Instead, it chose not to. The human stepped forward, standing in front of it, protecting it from fearful eyes. "It will stay here," he said. "Quiet, watching." The teachers hesitated. Every rule said this should be stopped. Every instinct said not to try. Finally, the head teacher nodded slowly. For now, they said. The bullies retreated to the far side of the hall. Their pets refused to move closer. The human returned to his place. The giant presence behind him like a living mountain. Bring your pet to school day continued, but nothing would ever be the same. Again, time moved strangely after that. The event continued. But no one cared about the other pets anymore. Creatures that once caused excitement were now ignored. Every eye kept drifting back to the human and his massive companion. The creature did not move. It did not growl. It did not threaten. It simply watched. That made it worse. Alien students whispered among themselves. They asked questions in low voices, afraid the creature might hear them. How is it so calm? Why does it obey him? What kind of world makes something like that? A pet? Teachers stood in small groups, arguing quietly. Some wanted to end the event immediately. Others feared that sudden action would cause panic or provoke the creature. The human noticed everything. He sat on a bench near his pet, hands folded, posture relaxed. He looked like he belonged there, as if this was normal. That confused everyone. Finally, the head teacher approached again, this time with 2 academy officials and a science officer. They stopped several steps away. We need information, the head teacher said. Now, the human stood up slowly, careful not to startle anyone. What would you like to know? He asked. The science officer glanced at the creature, scanning with a handheld device. The screen filled with warning symbols. This species does not appear in any known database, the officer said. Its energy readings are extreme. It is old, the human replied. Very old. One official swallowed. Is it intelligent? The creature turned its head slightly and looked directly at the speaker. The official froze. Yes, the human said. Smarter than most people think. A low sound came from the creature again. Students flinched, but the human placed a hand against its side. The sound stopped instantly. That single action caused a ripple of shock. Control like that should not be possible. Why would it listen to you? A teacher asked. You are human. The human met their eyes. Because I listened first, he said. Silence followed. He explained in simple words. On Earth, humans lived among dangerous creatures. They survived not by being stronger, but by understanding behavior, by learning fear, by learning trust. This one, he said, nodding toward the creature, was not captured. It was not forced. Some students shook their heads in disbelief. You expect us to believe it chose you? One whispered. Yes, the human answered. The bullies watched from a distance. Their confidence was gone. One of them clenched his claws, struggling to understand how everything had changed so quickly. So all this time, he muttered, You were hiding this? The human shook his head. I was protecting you, he said quietly. That answer landed harder than any threat. Teachers exchanged uneasy looks. If this was what humans called restraint, then what did they call war? The head teacher cleared their throat. This academy judged humans too quickly, they admitted. That was our mistake. The human did not smile. I did not come here for apologies, he said. I came here to learn. The creature shifted slightly, its eyes scanning the room once more. Students felt exposed, as if nothing about them was hidden. Fear slowly changed shape. It became respect. That respect became something close to understanding. But one question remained, unspoken in every mind. If this was only a pet, what else had humans not shown yet? The academy officials did not relax. Fear had changed into questions, where questions demanded answers. Rules demanded proof, and proof demanded a test. The head teacher spoke quietly with security leaders. Drones repositioned themselves. Energy shields brightened, ready to activate at a moment's notice. We cannot allow an unknown creature to remain without verification, the head teacher said. We must confirm it is under control. Many students stepped back. Some whispered that the human should leave. Others hoped the officials would not anger the creature. The human listened without interrupting. What kind of test? He asked. The science officer hesitated. A simple one. We ask it to move. Away from you. A heavy silence followed. The creature remained still, eyes half closed, patient. The bullies watched closely. A part of them wanted the test to fail. If the creature disobeyed, the human would fall again. The order of things would return. The human nodded once. He turned to the creature and spoke a single word in a soft, unfamiliar language. The creature lifted its head. Slowly, carefully, it stood. The floor groaned under its weight. Cracks spread across the tiles. But the creature adjusted its stance to reduce pressure. It took 3 steps. Backward. Exactly 3. Then it stopped. Gasps echoed through the hall. The science officer checked the readings. It responded instantly. Again, an official said, voice tense. Further away. The human did not repeat the command. No, he said. The official stiffened. Excuse us? It has done what you asked, the human replied. More would be disrespect. Disrespect. That word stunned them. The head teacher studied the human carefully. What happens if it feels threatened? The human looked around the hall. At the armed drones. At the shields. At the frightened faces. Then, he said calmly, I would already be standing in front of you. That was not a threat. That was a promise. The officials realized something important then. The creature was not being controlled. It was choosing restraint. The head teacher raised a hand. The drones powered down. The shields dimmed. The test is complete, they said. A long breath passed through the hall. The bullies lowered their heads. Their pets remained quiet, small, and suddenly unimpressive. The human returned to his place beside the creature. He rested his hand against its armor again. The creature lowered itself to the floor. Calm and UNMOVING. Bring your pet to school day ended soon after. But the lesson had only begun. The galaxy had tested a human, and for the first time, it had failed. The hall slowly emptied, but the weight of what had happened did not leave. Students walked in silence. Even those who usually talked without pause said nothing. The image of the human standing beside the massive creature stayed in every mind. Later that day, the human was asked to speak in a smaller chamber. Teachers, officials, and senior students gathered. The creature remained outside, resting in the open landing area, watched by nervous security teams. The human stood alone in the center of the room. We need to understand, the head teacher said. What you showed us today changes how we see your species. The human nodded. He had expected this. Humans look weak, he said simply. We know that. Some shifted uncomfortably. We do not have claws, he continued. We do not have armor. We do not have natural weapons. He paused. So we learned something else. The room was silent. We learned patience, he said. We learned cooperation. We learned how to live beside things stronger than us. A science officer asked, You mean control? The human shook his head. No, trust. He explained how humans survived on a dangerous world. Not by fighting everything, but by forming bonds. With animals. With environments. With each other. The creature you saw today was feared by humans once, he said. Long ago. One teacher leaned forward. What changed? We listened, the human replied. He told them that humans never start by showing their greatest strength. They observe first. They learn limits. They hide power until it is needed, because power shown too early, he said, becomes a target. The bullies, now seated quietly at the back, felt the words strike deep. "So all this time," one whispered, "you let us mock you?" The human looked at him. "Yes," he said, "because words are lighter than war." That sentence stayed with everyone. The head teacher exhaled slowly. The galaxy believed humans were harmless. The human smiled faintly. "We are," he said, "until we are not." Outside, the massive creature lifted its head. Sensing the human's calm, the truth was clear. Now, humans were not weak. They were careful, and that made them dangerous in ways no one had understood. The following days at the academy felt different. Alien students whispered quietly in the halls. The bullies avoided looking at the human. Some muttered apologies under their breaths. Others simply nodded when he passed, unsure how else to respond. The human did not gloat. He walked calmly, as always, and he never spoke unless necessary. His quiet confidence made a stronger impression than anger ever could. Teachers began asking him questions, not to mock, but to understand. Senior students approached him, curious about the methods humans used to bond with powerful creatures. Even the smallest aliens, those who had never thought humans could matter, stared with new interest. Bring Your Pet to School Day had ended, but the lessons lingered. The giant creature remained near the academy, obedient yet untamed. Its presence alone reminded everyone that humans were not to be underestimated. The bullies tried to regain their pride. They brought their pets to lessons, showing off strength and obedience. But it was different now. Their confidence had cracked. Every movement, every growl of their animals felt smaller compared to the calm dominance of the human's companion. One of the largest bullies finally approached him. His voice shook, barely audible. We were wrong," he admitted. "I thought humans were weak. I'm sorry." The human nodded once. "You do not need to apologize," he said. "You only needed to learn." Other students began to join, slowly, tentatively. Apologies mixed with questions, curiosity, and respect. They realized that humans did not rely on size, claws, or weapons to command attention. They relied on intelligence, patience, and connection. Word of the event spread across the academy quickly. Humans would no longer be underestimated. Other species, once arrogant and dismissive, now watched the small boy with a new kind of caution. The human never let this change him. He remained patient, calm, and observant. But every step he took carried the weight of the lesson he had just delivered without violence or anger. By the end of the week, the academy had shifted. The social hierarchy had been rewritten, not by force, but by understanding. Respect for humans became genuine, quiet, and lasting. And the creature remained at his side, a living reminder that trust, loyalty, and patience could wield power stronger than any weapon. The galaxy had learned something profound. Never judge a species by its size, its appearance, or what you think it cannot do. Sometimes, the quietest beings hold the greatest strength. Sometimes respect is earned, not by fear, but by showing the world who you truly are. The days following the event at the academy were quieter than usual. Classes continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Students no longer whispered jokes about the human. Bullies no longer found confidence in laughter. Even the teachers, who had once dismissed humans as harmless, now approached him with cautious respect. The academy had learned an unspoken truth. Appearances could be deceiving, and humans were not what they seemed. Outside the school, the massive creature remained calm but alert. Its presence dominated the landing grounds, stretching across the open space like a moving fortress. Yet despite its size and power, it never acted without the human's guidance. That was the most terrifying part for those who observed it, its restraint. It was a living force, patient and obedient, waiting for the right command. The human walked beside it daily, moving calmly through the halls and courtyards. Where he went, whispers followed. Students who had once mocked him now stole glances, curious and cautious. Some approached him with questions about his homeworld. Others asked about the creature itself. He answered politely, revealing small details but never too much. He understood the lesson he was teaching. Mystery and restraint could be more powerful than brute strength. Even the bullies, now humbled, had begun to change. They avoided provoking him, but they also began to observe him. They noticed how he never wasted energy on anger, how he never rushed to prove himself, and how every action he took carried purpose. Slowly, their mockery turned into admiration. Some of them even tried to understand the way humans moved, how humans communicated with creatures, and how humans could command loyalty without fear. It was a new kind of power, one that came from patience, intelligence, and calm authority. As the week passed, the Academy officials realized the implications of what had happened. Humans were not just another weak species. They were strategists, learners, and leaders. The galaxy had underestimated them for centuries, and now, in a single day, that illusion had shattered. Plans were quietly discussed among teachers and administrators, strategies to understand humans better. But even they feared the unknown limits of the species they had once dismissed. The human himself remained unassuming. He did not boast, he did not challenge, and he did not gloat. He simply continued to live as he always had, calm and observant. But his presence carried a warning. Every student, every teacher, and every official knew that humans were different, that beneath their quiet appearance lay intelligence, patience, and the ability to command forces greater than any one of them could imagine. At the edge of the academy, in a quiet corner where few students dared to go, the human spoke softly to his creature. Its glowing eyes met his, reflecting understanding and trust. They did not need words. The bond they shared was old, deeper than language, older than training. It was trust forged in experience and mutual respect. The creature followed him because it wanted to, not because it was forced to. And that simple truth carried a lesson more profound than any display of power could ever teach. Across the galaxy, word began to spread. Holographic messages from other academies, intercepted communications, and travelers' tales all spoke of a human and his colossal companion. Some laughed at first, unable to believe the stories. Others grew uneasy, sensing that the universe was about to change. Humans, it seemed, were not what the galaxy had expected. They were calm, observant, patient, and terrifyingly capable when pushed. Back at the academy, life began to return to a routine. Classes resumed, lessons were taught, and pets were once again brought into the halls. But nothing felt the same. Every student approached the day with a sense of caution, aware that the human's calm authority could challenge assumptions, habits, and hierarchies. Even the smallest gestures of power were now measured against the memory of the creature that had entered the hall silently, without aggression, yet had dominated the room entirely through presence and restraint. The human walked through the hallways each day, accompanied by his pet. Students who had once laughed now gave him space, some whispering questions under their breaths. Teachers occasionally approached him with quiet admiration, careful not to disrupt the bond he shared with the creature. Even the bullies, humbled and thoughtful, began to act differently. They tried to understand what had happened, though few could articulate it fully. They had witnessed something beyond strength, something rare, precise, and entirely human. Late at night, when the academy was quiet, the human would sometimes look up at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly above him, full of unknowns, dangers, and mysteries. He knew that humans were still underestimated on worlds far beyond this one. He knew that the galaxy had yet to see what humans were truly capable of. He also knew that patience, intelligence, and trust were weapons that no alien could easily counter. The massive creature rested nearby, its glowing eyes dimming but never fully closing. It had grown used to the human's presence, as the human had grown used to its calm authority. Together, they were a living warning. Humans were patient, observant, and never alone. The human understood the lesson he had taught. The galaxy had seen strength today, yes, but not in the way anyone expected. Strength had come in patience, in calm, in understanding loyalty and trust. The lesson was simple, yet profound. Do not judge a species by its appearance. Do not mock what you do not understand. And never, ever assume weakness where there may be power hidden. Waiting. As students passed in the halls, some dared to speak to him, some quietly observed, and some simply walked past with new respect. Whispers grew into stories, and stories into warnings. Across the stars, in other academies and colonies, creatures and beings alike began to speak of the human and his pet. Humans, it seemed, were beings to watch, to respect, and perhaps to fear if provoked. The human walked through the academy, his massive companion silently following. The galaxy had been given a warning, though few realized it yet. Humans were calm. Humans were patient. And humans were never alone. If a species could raise a creature that powerful and command it through trust instead of fear, what else could they do? That thought spread quietly, a seed in the minds of those who had witnessed the event. Across worlds, governments, academies, and military councils began to reconsider humans, wondering what powers, secrets, and strategies they had kept hidden for centuries. The human had done nothing violent, nothing cruel, but he had changed perceptions entirely. He had rewritten the rules of what it meant to underestimate a species, and in the quiet moments, when students and teachers alike dared not speak too loudly, the memory lingered. A small human boy, calm and patient, standing beside a colossal, obedient, and intelligent creature, showing the galaxy that appearances could deceive. That strength was more than muscle, and that sometimes the quietest beings held the greatest power. The galaxy would remember, and the human knew it, because this was only the beginning. Humans had much more to show, and the stars would have no choice but to notice. The academy had returned to a fragile calm, but whispers carried far beyond its walls. Across the galaxy, transmissions of the human and his massive companion began to spread. At first, most dismissed them as exaggeration. Rumors passed among travelers and students of other worlds. But the more the story circulated, the more serious beings became. Galactic leaders, military strategists, and explorers began asking the same question: what else are humans capable of? Back at the academy, the human continued his studies. He spoke little, observed much, and moved with the quiet confidence that had earned him respect. His massive companion remained at his side, a silent guardian, always alert. It never grew restless. It never demanded attention, but it was always there, a reminder of what humans could do. Some students still tried to test him in small ways, mocking gestures, whispered insults, or challenges during lessons, but each attempt fell flat. The human responded only with calm observation, never anger, never fear. Each failed challenge only reinforced his reputation. The galaxy, however, was no longer local. Faraway systems began to pay attention. Word reached academies on distant planets, colonies near asteroid belts, and fleets patrolling the outer rim. Humans were being watched now, not for diplomacy, not for trade, but for caution. The human did not seek attention. He did not crave power. But the galaxy had begun to notice anyway. Then one day, a new transmission arrived at the academy. It was not from a student or a teacher. It was from a distant interstellar council, a group that governed multiple systems. We have observed your species. Reports suggest humans command unknown creatures with unprecedented loyalty. You're ordered to provide explanation and demonstration. The hall where the transmission played went silent. Every student, teacher, and official looked toward the human. Even the bullies had stopped their petty squabbles, sensing that something far greater than a classroom lesson had arrived. The human listened quietly, then glanced at his companion. Its glowing eyes met his calm, intelligent, and patient. He nodded once, barely noticeable, that no one understood what he was thinking. But everyone knew one thing: the galaxy was about to learn that humans were not just survivors. They were a force that could not be predicted, controlled, or dismissed. A low hum came from the massive creature. Security drones hovered closer, sensing the presence of something extraordinary. Even the Council's message, transmitted across thousands of light years, seemed inadequate compared to the reality standing in front of them. The human spoke at last, his voice steady, calm, and full of quiet authority. "We will meet your council," he said. "But understand this: we do not negotiate through fear. We do not demonstrate power to impress. Trust and understanding are our strength. And if tested, we respond only when necessary." The room shivered, though no wind stirred. Every being in that hall understood that they were witnessing the first ripple of something much larger than any academy lesson outside the academy. Across space and light years, beings of many species began to question their assumptions. If humans could do this at a school, what might they do in the galaxy beyond? And the human, standing quietly beside his massive companion, knew one truth: the galaxy had finally begun to notice humans, and when it did, it would never be the same again.